Ladies and gents, welcome back. So we have got another bumper set of seminars for you this afternoon. Hopefully you're well fed, well watered and ready to go. And our first panel of this afternoon is titled Game Changers, Athletes Cracking the Creator Code on TikTok. And to take you through this, it's a great pleasure to welcome up Tim Edwards, who is Sports Partnerships Lead UK, Ireland and the Nordics for TikTok, and Kadeena Cox, who's a 5-time Paralympic Gold-Medallist. You're in very good hands. Would you give them both a very warm welcome, please? Tim and Kadeena, come on up. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Alex. So as just mentioned, my name's Tim. I'm the sports lead for TikTok for UK and the Nordics. I think kind of the reason to kind of just kind of context for this session and kind of what it's about and kind of the overarching themes is that for us on the sports level at TikTok is that we believe it's the #1 platform, and it's proven to be the #1 platform for fan engagement and for audience growth, whether that be you're a sports brand, whether you're a team, whether you're a rights holder, or indeed whether you're an athlete. And nowhere was that more apparent than Paris 2024 on TikTok, which has been talked about as being potentially the biggest content moment to date in the platform's lifespan. And kind of like within kind of like no bigger cohort was that apparent was that within the athlete content that was created on the ground in the village, and the virality you saw that, and the way in which fans learnt about new sports via the TikTok content of the athletes, discovered new athletes, followed new athletes during the course of those games. And we're very, very fortunate enough to be joined by a real kind of expert within that effect, in Kadeena, who is someone who, I'm going to embarrass you now. You've gone well. First and foremost, you've managed to go viral on your TikTok through being a prolific user, both at the Paris Games and at the Tokyo Paralympics as well. You're a 5-time Paralympic gold medal winner. You've done that at 3 different Paralympic Games. You've also done that on both the athletics track and the cycling velodrome as well, which is just dizzying in terms of achievements. And I also was looking at kind of some of the TV work that you've done as well in between. So it's an unbelievable range. You've done The Jump, you've done I'm a Celebrity, you've done Celebrity Bake Off, and then did I also see something that you won Celebrity Robot Wars as well?
Oh yeah, that was the most
I'm going to have to try very hard to not to make all my questions about that specifically, to be honest. But just kind of I guess kind of kick us off in terms of your own career as an athlete and kind of like how you've kind of allied kind of online content and making content online as well as part of that. Kind of when did you kind of like first kind of like start to notice during your career that it was going to be that it was going to be a really, really important part of your career, kind of like alongside your performance, both in terms of gaining a new audience, but also as kind of like a real tool for building your own personal brand as well. Was that kind of like a eureka moment, or did it kind of happen from kind of seeing like other athletes do it, or kind of how did it kind of come about to you?
I think it was one of those things where, like everyone else, during lockdown, I jumped on TikTok, got a bit carried away with the trends, and prior to that, I had like a small following on Instagram, but I just posted random stuff for my family and friends, and didn't really see the importance of it. And then I saw like some other athletes, being able to get opportunities through their followings on social media. And during lockdown, my following started to grow, and I realized that I could, showcase myself as an athlete, but also get across good messages about being a disabled athlete, about the ins and outs of being an athlete. I just kind of realized that, I could like showcase my life by using these platforms, and then also get opportunities to work with different brands because of the profile I had.
Yeah, lockdown is actually a really good pivot actually to asking you about the Tokyo Paralympics specifically. So it's a very, very, very kind of different vibe within the village, wasn't it? Kind of like particularly compared to Paris, kind of like for kind of like the athletes themselves. Like kind of like how did it kind of feel in terms of difference, kind of I guess kind of like creating content, kind of like where almost like you were under so many kind of like different restrictions, and almost kind of like you were kind of like had to like look for distractions. I guess kind of like a little bit. Like did that kind of necessitate like a change in kind of like how you approach things looking back compared to Paris?
Yeah, I think so. In Tokyo, like I realized that TikTok in particular, it became a window into what was going on, because our family, our friends, the fans weren't able to come over to Tokyo. So it allowed people to see what, was going on. It allowed us to show the kind of rules and restrictions we had. Like, I remember posting a video about kind of the barriers that we had, like when we were in the canteen, like the dividers, so we weren't, sat next to each other. And it was just interesting that we could let people in. And also, like, it kept my head from not going crazy, because we were just spending so much time kind of isolated, alone. Like, there was so many rules and restrictions. So, being able to jump on TikTok and do a random dance. A lot of the time it was at weird times of the day, because we were in Tokyo and like my sleeping schedule took a little while to kind of come round. But it was just that opportunity to let people in and like show like family back home what was going on. And I just realized how much people were enjoying that, like just enjoying like, kit hauls. And for me, it was just a little bit of fun and just something to like, it keeps your head going. When you're so focused on like the sport, it's quite nice to also have something a little bit away from that.
Yeah, and it is, and kind of looking ahead to Paris. As I said, very kind of like different in terms of atmosphere. Like, do you have, and kind of like I guess kind of like so many kind of like different kind of trends appeared from Paris. Whether it might be in pieces of music, it might be in pieces of commentary. It was even like items of food. Like, do you have any kind of like individual or like kind of like particular favorite trends that you saw from Paris?
So obviously there was the muffin guy, which I literally don't know how that became a thing.
Did it actually taste any good, or was it?
Well, see, this was the thing. I was like so excited about this muffin because he talked about the muffins so much. And I feel like I was more excited about getting into the village for the muffins than actually competing. And I was really looking forward to creating the content, which I did, like kind of like a in the moment tasting. And it wasn't as great as I thought it was gonna be. I feel like I could get a nicer one from like Costco or M&S. But yeah, no, it was a decent muffin. I definitely did a video. Someone said to me to try it with custard. So I did a video of me basically walking with the muffin from the canteen to my room on the train back to the UK, like back up to home. Oof. And then when I got home in the UK, like I put the custard on, and it actually was quite good. So
you smuggled it back?
Yeah. Oh, it took a while, and it was hard not to crush it, but we made it.
Yeah, I remember being out there for work at TikTok, and kind of it was probably at the time when kind of people were most of all losing their minds about it, whereas kind of like we were having meetings about being like, how can we get hold of one, how can we get one out of the village so we can film with it and things like that. But I think kind of zooming out, kind of like I guess kind of about TikTok and about you as an athlete, kind of. Is there anything in particular that you think kind of like about the platform that kind of like really that kind of works really well for you? Kind of like why kind of like you gravitate towards it? Is it because, as you say, kind of you find it kind of like fun and relaxing, kind of like and kind of a nice distraction, particularly in those high pressure competition moments?
I think there's just so many different trends, and like TikTok is like quite fast paced and like fast moving. But there's always new trends, so like you can find trends that align with who you are, like what you do. Like there's always like fun sounds. Like I love a dance, so I'm always like following like the dance trends. And it's really easy to be able to incorporate that into kind of showcasing who you are, like as an athlete, but also as a person, because I think people forget athletes also have a life outside of their sport. So it's nice to be able to use that, and I think I just like the engagement you can get, and as a disabled person who doesn't necessarily have a disability that's visible, it's quite nice that I can create and post about my disability and that be shown to like such a large audience. So I can then be kind of advocating and educating people on the difference in disabilities and the difference in impairments you get at the Paralympics.
Yeah. Do you think kind of for disability sport in general, kind of that's kind of like made a wider difference? I mean, like at TikTok, we were really fortunate enough to partner with Paralympic GB for the games. I think they're somewhere. I think they're somewhere in the room as well. And it was amazing, kind of like the level of investment that they put into their own TikTok account. I think kind of they produced the highest amount of content. They were the most engaged team account during the games, beating even Team USA, which is kind of our own kind of like personal medal table that we look at. But kind of like, have you seen that kind of like a positive effect, I guess, in terms of educating people around disability representation and disability sport in general?
Yeah, I think like there's so many different disabilities, and like I think some people also see our disabilities as restrictions rather than what we can do. So I've seen like different teammates, different people from different countries able to like showcase their impairments, and people asking questions, and then being able to create more content off the back of that to showcase and explain and allow people to understand. And I think it has been such a great thing for people to just educate, because I think you have this kind of impression of what a disabled athlete is, unless you kind of see these trends or watch the Paralympics in depth. Not a lot of people understand the different disabilities, and they also get confused at the competitions, like why is this person with a missing leg competing against this person with 2 legs, or this person with missing arms, which is what I get quite often because I have all my limbs, but I predominantly compete against people missing a limb below the knee. So it is quite handy for that and to be able to explain that. And I think it's allowed for a lot of different athletes to be able to push that education side.
It's really interesting. Because I'm actually hearing Paralympic GB talking about, for them, kind of, it was a platform to like help contextualize things around their sports and around their athletes, like around, because so many athletes going to compete the games for that team that have such an amazing lived experience. So kind of how you can use that content to kind of help kind of really quickly like educate users, kind of contextualize them about what they've had to do to like get there, what their kind of like own kind of like personal story is as well, kind of like alongside what you see them competing on TV as well. But what kind of content on TikTok do you find that kind of like resonates most kind of with your own audience? Is it as you say, kind of like much more leaning down kind of the trends angle? Is it behind the scenes? Is it kind of educational content? Like what kind of direction do you find that kind of resonates most with them?
I create a variety of content. I think I do a lot of content around kind of my impairment and the journey, I guess. So the journey from being someone who lost the ability to walk, to kind of relearning all that and, getting back into sport and showing how sport was something that kind of saved me and helped me through that journey. A lot of people kind of like that content because I guess you can empathize with that, and a lot of people, it kind of normalizes me as a person rather than just being like, oh my God, she's this athlete. Like people can kind of see themselves in those situations. But I also think a lot of my content is very much based on, I won't say my ability to dance, maybe my inability to dance. But I do like a lot of the trends, like a lot of like the trending music, the trending dances. I've done like a lot of like, the transition stuff. I don't know if anyone remembers the whole like wipe on, wipe off thing where like you like change. Like that was like one of my first transitions. And I've kind of like enjoyed jumping on the trends, but being able to put like a spin in it as being able to talk about my disability and talk about the sport that I do. So a lot of the time I'll do like trending dances, but I'll show myself doing them in my wheelchair or show myself being in my wheelchair and then transitioning to not being in my wheelchair, just to highlight the difference a couple of hours or a couple of minutes can make with my disability. So I mean, do I do humor? I don't think I'm funny. So I'm not sure. But I try like keep it like mixed up. Like the day in the life stuff, some people like it, and they quite like seeing what athletes do. But it's probably not the content that does as well for me.
Yeah. And what's kind of what has kind of the impact been kind of like real world, I guess, kind of like last kind of 4 years or so in terms of you've had in terms of growing your own fan base, but also like media opportunities, brand partnerships, and things like how have you seen it kind of like intertwine, I guess, like with that side of you as an athlete?
Yeah, I think I've had some amazing opportunities based off brands being able to see my personality on like social media. So I think, you know, when you see an athlete on a start line, a lot of us tend to be really focused, and you don't really get to see the personality side. So, you know, like a lot of brands will be like, okay, this person has X amount of medals, let's, you know, get them. But then they don't have like the best personality on, they're not as vibrant. Whereas I think when you see different athletes on social media, you can see like who they are outside of their sport. And I think that has given me opportunities to, you know, work with different brands, like some of the brand partners we have, like John West. I was able to work with them, and throughout the Paralympics, like they did quite a lot of work, like pushing on social media. And they still continue to do that as they continue to work with us. And yeah, I've worked with so many different brands that kind of picked me up based off my social media content, which, yeah, it's quite bizarre. Like, people are like, oh, you've got like a cool like personality. And I'm like, my family wouldn't say that, but we'll roll with it for now.
Yeah, shout out to John West's TikTok account, which is very very funny and very and very unexpected. And I guess like looking towards like LA and this kind of, well, it's coming up to it's like 3 years to go now, isn't it? Like for brands in the room looking to engage with kind of, you know, with athletes in that build up, but also looking to engage with like a new cohort of athletes as well, kind of like who might be going to the first games. Like, do you have any kind of like words of advice in terms of like how they approach their selection and their shortlisting of athletes, but then also kind of like how they engage with them in terms of utilizing their own social platforms and their own audience for maximum benefit?
Firstly, don't forget about us golden oldies.
Exactly.
I've still got
Very
it.
true.
But yeah, I think it's really important to look at the kind of the newer generations that are coming through. It's really exciting to watch their journeys, and even watching them from now. And I think like I said, like being able to see the athletes outside of their actual sport, I think it's quite important. So I think, you know, brands should be looking at the content that's being created. You know, if they're creating content at a competition, like, has that, you know, had really good engagement and reached like big audiences. And I don't think it's always about the numbers. Like, I think with TikTok, and what I love about it is sometimes you can have like a small number of followers, but like you can have videos that go viral and go really well. So I think it's just looking at the content that they're creating. But also I think something that's really important is not trying to mold athletes into exactly what you want. I think allowing us to be creative and show that creative side. Like a lot of brands, they've picked, like, I can use me for an example, but I've been picked up because they've liked the creative content that I've made. And it, like, if that's what you like, then continue to allow us to be creative in that way. And, you know, we can work to your brief, but like, I think that creativity is so important, and it allows us to be seen as individuals, especially if you're in a team sport. Like, it's nice to be able to separate from that. I think there was a rugby player, an American rugby player.
Alona Mayer.
Yeah. I think she was able to really nicely separate herself from the team and, you know, be seen as an individual because of the way she used social media and the opportunities that she got off the back of that. So I think it's quite nice to be able to, just allow us to be creative in our own ways. But yeah, definitely look at the journey, and there'll be some cool newbies coming up.
No, sure. And flipping that round, kind of like for the athletes, kind of like what would kind of like your piece of advice kind of like be for the kind of like for the athletes who are kind of approaching this cycle for the first time, you know, in terms of how they fit in content, in terms of their training, kind of like how they kind of like approach that tonally, if say they might look at someone like Alona, for example, and think like, I don't have that type of personality. Kind of what kind of one piece of advice would you give? And very, very, very quick, because I think our time's up as well.
Just to be yourself and be natural. I think one of the most important things is to not force it. You can really tell when like you're trying to be someone else or create in a way that someone else has. And then, just to not, I think sometimes the content that goes really well is not the stuff that you've worked really hard on, but the stuff that you've just done in like a couple of minutes. So don't always stress about it being perfectly polished content.
Okay, amazing. Kadeena, thank you so much. It's been so amazing to hear from you. Can we all give a big round of applause for Kadeena, please?
Thank you.